Welcome back to the channel. I'm Austin, and it's time for the Grau vs QBZ, discussing which one is the best assault rifle within Warzone. First, I'll go over the stats in depth, then I'll give you my verdict on which one is better, and then finally tell you the best class setups at the end. We're going to take a look at the most important stats for assault rifles in Warzone, and to start off with, we're going to be talking about max bullet velocity, where the Grau will come out ahead with 1300 compared to 1155 for the QBZ. Both weapons are going to reach long-range meta bullet velocity and will feel hit scan out to about 100 meters. While the Grau comes out ahead, the QBZ still has a great bullet velocity, and if we take a look at fire rate, we can see that the Grau will once again be a little bit better with 730 rounds per minute compared to 679. This is definitely a good benefit to the Grau because it will make the weapon feel a little bit more forgiving if you miss a couple shots here and there. However, the QBZ's fire rate is about average for assault rifles, meaning it isn't a weakness or a strength. More bullets downstream is always going to be beneficial. Now let's see how much damage these weapons are going to do. These weapons are almost identical in their average damage, with the QBZs being just slightly better at close range with 33.25 to 31.5 for the Grau. This advantage will get a little bit smaller at long range with a 28.5 to 27 advantage. Now if we take a look at a full damage breakdown, we're going to be looking at head, chest, stomach, and limb damage. We can see that these weapons have very similar damage profiles, with the headshots and limb shots having equal damage. However, the QBZ has a little bit of an interesting damage breakdown, where its damage lowers at every turn. This is a good and bad thing because it gives the weapon a little bit more upside than most, but it also makes it a little bit less consistent than most weapons as well. Where the Grau doesn't have any damage drop off from chest to limbs, this will make the Grau feel ultra consistent, and you can't lower its TTK by aiming too low and can only increase it by getting headshots. The QBZ is a weapon that will highly reward accurate players. The best weapons typically don't have damage drop-offs from chest to stomach, or at least the most popular ones don't, and this is always going to be a good recipe for weapons within Warzone. And moving on to close range TTK, the most likely time to kill at close range is going to go to the QBZ easily with 619 milliseconds compared to 658 for the Grau. The QBZ has the faster TTK because it only takes 8 shots to kill, while the Grau will take 9. However, the QBZ does require you to hit one chest shot to achieve this time to kill, and I called it the most likely time to kill because that is super easy to achieve for any skill level player. This makes both of these weapons feel very consistent up close. Both weapons need you to get 2 headshots to lower their respective TTKs, where the QBZ would go to an impressive 530 milliseconds and the Grau to 575. The QBZ's TTK with 2 headshots is going to be faster than most SMGs up close. However, it isn't easy to consistently get this time to kill, so going for headshots on these weapons is going to be beneficial at close range because hitting 2 headshots is definitely feasible, but if you can't do it effectively, it's definitely better to just make sure that you're hitting your shots, so just aim for the body. And before we switch over to long range TTK, let's actually talk about the range of these weapons. These weapons will actually have identical ranges at 31 meters respectively. These are both excellent ranges for assault rifles in Warzone. Many of the fan favorite ARs only have 22 to 27 meter ranges, so having 31 is going to be a good benefit for both weapons. Moving on over to long range TTK, the QBZ will once again have the better time to kill by a slim margin with 795 milliseconds to 822. To get this TTK on the QBZ, you'll need to hit 5 stomach shots, which is super easy to accomplish. That's just the lower torso. That's a very likely spot for you to be hitting your bullets. The QBZ will take 10 shots to kill, while the Grau will take 11. Now the QBZ actually does have a big time advantage at long range because you can lower the TTK without even getting any headshots. If you can hit 6 chest shots, the TTK will lower all the way to 707 milliseconds, which then makes it very competitive with most ARs at long range. And this isn't very hard to do either. It's much easier than getting a couple headshots. You just gotta aim up to the chest and then you're good. While the Grau is no slouch, as it can also lower its TTK with only 1 headshot to 740 milliseconds, both weapons can lower their TTKs again with 3 headshots, but I don't think that's a very likely situation to happen and not good to go for, because we're talking about long range. Hitting 3 headshots at 31 plus meters is definitely not very easy to do. But I think it's easy to see that the Grau is going to feel super consistent and that the QBZ might be more of an up and down experience if you're trying to use this weapon in Warzone. One thing that I can say is that I've used both weapons a lot for this video, and the QBZ is great once you know how to use it and where to aim your shots, and that mainly is chest. You want to hit chest shots with the QBZ and then it's going to perform very well. Moving on to accuracy, both these weapons are actually really easy to aim. Both have a very low vertical recoil, and it's really easy to control for average players. Generally, weapons that are easy to aim with solid TTKs are going to be popular within Warzone, but currently only Unfortunately, the Grau is used heavily by the player base, but if I had to pick the one that was easier to control the recoil on, I'd have to go with the QBZ just barely. Taking a look at damage per mag, the QBZ will come on ahead with a 1680 to 1440 advantage over the Grau. This stat is going to be more important the bigger the mode, making it the most influential within trios and quads. The Grau could struggle a bit in these larger modes, especially quads, because a full team has 1000 health, and you would have to have 69% accuracy. Yep, I'm not kidding, 69% accuracy to knock all of them in one clip. That number would drop all the way down to 59% for the QBZ, so damage per mag is definitely a little low for the Grau. And now we're going to switch over to long range damage per second, and the QBZ is going to be slightly better once again with a 317 DPS to 292. The QBZ has a solid damage per second overall in Warzone, while the Grau has one of the lowest in the entire game. Basically, this just means you can have more damage output at long range with the QBZ. Finally, moving on over to the movement stats. These weapons are pretty similar with identical ADS, strafe speed, and sprint to fire, while the QBZ, this is where the differences really come in, will obliterate the Grau in movement and ADS movement. I'm going to need to highlight the QBZ's movement really thoroughly though. The Mac 10's movement is 5.03. The QBZ's is 5.0. That is not a mistake. That is actually its movement. The Mac is the most mobile SMG in Warzone, and the QBZ is basically identical to that. This is a huge advantage and was originally the QBZ's calling card before they buffed its TTK. However, the sprint to fire time isn't great, which is usually paired with great movement, but I digress. The QBZ will definitely have superior movement as the most mobile AR within all of Warzone. If you guys could do me a quick favor and like the video, it really helps out. Maybe subscribe as well if you enjoy these videos. Alright, I've given you all the relevant stats for these weapons, and it's time for my verdict. The QBZ. The Grau's been a fan favorite ever since it came into Warzone, but the QBZ is probably the most underappreciated and underloved weapon in all of Warzone. It was one of the worst weapons when Cold War was first integrated, but if you guys haven't noticed, it has only been buffed and never nerfed. It's actually been buffed 4 times. They've been trying to make this thing meta for the longest time, but no one will use it because of its initial impression. That is why I compared it to the Grau, because that is the most used long-range assault rifle in Warzone currently, but the QBZ has a better TTK, damage per mag, damage per second, and better movement. The Grau doesn't really significantly beat the QBZ in any category. The one benefit to the Grau is going to be it's familiar and comfortable, paired with it being super consistent. Where the QBZ's weird damage breakdown, where the damage drops off from head to chest to stomach to limbs, which pretty much no other weapon in the whole game does that. But its most likely time to kill at all ranges is still going to be better than a lot of long range options, while having ample room to make its TTK better. I can't say this enough, but please go and try the QBZ out. If you learn the minimal recoil pattern, you're going to be loving the QBZ. We're going to start off by making the Grau best class setup, and personally this is my favorite weapon to use as fully loaded within Warzone. So I'm going to start by making the normal loadout, then just switch it up to fully loaded. To begin with, we're going to try to make the range better, get the recoil down, and of course we got to use an extended mag. So the first thing we're going to use is this monolithic suppressor because it gives us damage range, and then for probably the best attachment on this weapon is the Tempest 26.4 Archangel because it gives us our max bullet velocity of 1300, which is elite, and then we extend our range even more and we get some recoil control. Then of course we need an optic, and this is going to be preference based, but I think the VLK 3x optic is by far the best long range AR option for Modern Warfare weapons. And then as we said, the magazine, we need to get the damage per mag as high as possible, so we got to use the 60 round even though it does hurt our ADS level. It's definitely worth it on this weapon. And then for underbarrel, we're just going to use the Commando foregrip for recoil stabilization and aiming stability. So now this thing is going to be super accurate, super easy to use with excellent range. And then if you want to make this fully load, so basically like your ghost class setup at the end of the game, if you're coming in 5th circle and you hit the free loadout and you want something so you have max ammo, this is going to be what you're going to do. You're going to take off the VLK 3x optic, you're just going to go for the perks and put on fully loaded. It also works great for a second loadout when you're switching over to ghost or whatever second perk you want, and you just need to get some extra AR ammo. That is what I would use if we're just using this as a normal class, and then just switch out the VLK 3x for the fully loaded if you're just trying to grab it late game. Now let's move over to the QBZ, the most underappreciated weapon in all of Warzone. I'm going to give you the best class setup, and you guys have got to try this out. So to begin with, we are going to be trying to extend its range, as well as getting its recoil down and increasing its bullet velocity. We start off with the Agency Suppressor, the classic attachment for all long-range options on Cold War weapons. It gives us recoil control, damage range, and bullet velocity. Then we move over to the barrel, which is going to be the 15.5 Task Force for some even more bullet velocity, some more recoil control, and some more damage range. And then we go to the optic. We're going to be using the axial arms 3 times. That's my personal favorite. If you like the Royal and Cross 4 times, you can use that as well. But for me, I like the cleaner sights of the axial arms 3 times, and the ADS doesn't get hampered like it does with the 4 times. And from there, we're going to go to the magazine. We're going to use the 60-round drum. If you're using this in solos or duos, you could use the 45-round drum, but if we're talking trios or quads, you definitely got to use the 60-round. And then we go over to the underbarrel, and we're going to be using the Field Agent grip for horizontal and vertical recoil control. This thing's going to be a beam, it's going to be super mobile, and you're going to have a good time as long as you're making sure to hit chest shots. If you hit stomach shots at close range, it's okay. Long range, you got to be hitting your chest shots. I'm going to have 2 videos linked on screen right now for close range options to pair with this QBZ. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.